What it's kept saying.
Ain't no #1 Marcus J. Live from the Legacy Internet Radio.
What number is that? 2? No, 3?
Yeah,
No,
you know,
6? You only
this
have
is what
6.
happens, right? When we in here producing and y'all not a part of it. You know, you're not privy to it. You know, Q Boogie and me, we just in here rocking, we rolling. We lost Mr. 3375, but you know, if you want to take his place and rock with us, 804-402-2893. That's the number to dial to be a part of tonight's discussion, and we appreciate anybody who wants to rock with us. You know, we're here, Q Boogie and I, and we're talking tonight about what would they do, what would they say. That is the theme of tonight's show. And tonight's show, we're talking about they being, you know, our elders. We're talking about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Bob Marley and Tupac Shakur and folks like them who are no longer here with us. Yeah. But, you know, their influence has been felt throughout our lives and right. our existences. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about that, Q. And we talked a little bit about Barack Obama and Donald Trump and voting Democratic, and we talked about reality TV, Black Lives Matter. But one of the elephants that's in the room that we haven't talked about, that you and I have talked about offline, is gay and lesbian and transgender. And I would be curious to know what they would say about them. Now, you and I, as individuals living in 2017 as millennial, as well as a Gen Xer, we can have our opinions, and we obviously can't really say what we think about them without saying what we think about our own opinions. But right. Let's talk about that. Okay. Like, what would they say about transgender and gay and lesbian and that type of community? So when we say they, we don't have to say specifically. We're talking in general. That's what we're doing. Right. So the mic is yours. What's your thoughts?
Hey, Sean. Sorry. Oh.
What up, Sean? Peace to you, brother.
I was having a conversation with my boo, my bae, last week, and he posed a question of gay, you know, LGBT. I was like, why am I? There's an echo. He posed a question about LGBT and like what did they bring to the black community as a whole, and like what did they bring to the movement, especially the older ones, the civil rights movement and all these sorts of things. So I asked him if he knew about Bayard Rustin, and he was like, no, I don't know who that is. I was like, that was basically one of Martin's right-hand men. Bayard was openly gay, but he was a key component as to how Martin was able to get into a lot of the facets that he was able to get into. And we like to say it's like, oh, it was solely because of the church, but no, Bayard played a huge role in that. And he was like, no, I never knew that. I'm like, you probably never knew it because if people knew he was gay, they didn't bring it up because he was so close to Martin, and they just figured out, oh, if Martin's okay with it, then I guess we're okay with it, even if we're really not. But then also back then, and even a lot of times still, even now, it had to be hidden. But so many things that we know of and that we hold on to in our lexicon and in our colloquialisms and everything come from the LGBT community, especially in the black LGBT community. I think it would have been completely different with Malcolm and Martin, and I think it would have been vastly different with Martin, Malcolm, and Tupac. We were living in throughout the rap scene in the 90s where the F-bomb can be thrown around and nobody bat an eye. Can't get away with that now. And not to say that he wouldn't have been open to it, because I feel like Tupac was really open to everybody. If you had something good to say, you had something to say, period, you dialogue with him, he's going to talk to you, gay, straight, or whatever. But I think that hyper masculinity and that, in a lot of ways, that fragile masculinity plays a huge part into why back then, and even so in a lot of spaces now, we don't want to lump these people into the spaces of black liberation. If you do not adhere to black liberation in a certain context, then you are, quote unquote, along the sides of the oppressor because you're different, you're other. And I think it would have been a little easier back in the day, but you would have had to be closeted the whole time. You couldn't have like really been open. If you were open, you could only confide in your core circle, like how Bayard did Martin. And Martin told him straight up, like, "Yo, I don't care. We still going for this thing, right? All right, cool." And he was able to get him into spaces that he himself would not have been able to get himself in. So I think it would have been great. People would have been open to it, but it would have had to be in a closeted sense. Now it's a lot more open, but what sucks is that the hypermasculinity goes into it, and that's what goes into the trans conversation of how this person, people just think, oh, you just wake up and decide, I want to be a woman today. That's not what being trans is about. I have people that I know personally that are trans, and people love to misgender or make fun of or switch on things that they fear or they don't understand, so far as to hate and kill that thing. And what pissed me off about Lil Duval and people like, the Breakfast Club, I've always been a like static listener of the Breakfast Club. I can't stand Charlamagne, and the rest of them are just.
So Charlamagne is your dude to not like? I thought it was just me.
No, I can't stand Charlamagne.
I'm not a fan.
No.
I'm just not a fan. I won't say no more. I'm just not a fan. No shade. I'm just not a fan.
No, he's pretty terrible. But understanding that being trans is something that is vastly. It's not something that you can cover in one conversation. And I don't think our generation would have looked at that. The generations behind us would have looked at that as openly as many, can't say most, but at least many of us can look at it as openly now. There were a lot of names that you called people that were trans back in the day that I'm not going to repeat. And it was cool because you were othering them. Regardless they were black, white, or indifferent, you were just othering them. And if that person presented the way that you felt like they were comfortable to present, oh, okay, cool, and they could be a part of the conversation now. But if they're outside of that, it's like, well, I don't know if we really want to involve you in these things because we're trying to get stuff done and you're going to be a quote-unquote distraction, just like y'all's president said a couple weeks ago about trans people in the military. And it's a really tough spot for me because I got asked last week, a lot of people love to talk about how they want black liberation, but it got to be on their terms. And that's not the way liberation works. Either it's liberation for all, it's liberation for none. It can't be just for straight black men, straight black women that adhere to the Hotep way of life. It can't just be that way.
No, I would tend to agree with you. As far as my personal opinions about gay and lesbian transgender, I'll get to in a minute. But the segment is, what would they do? What would they say? And, we're speaking generally. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Malcolm would have had a lot of positive things to say about it. Yeah. I think that Martin probably would have brushed it aside and said, you know what? Y'all being discriminated against. Okay, come on. I don't think that he would have been a champion. Yeah. Or a figurehead for their cause. Yeah. But I think that he would have been like, you know what? They not treating you all that well, then come rock with us. Right. As far as me and how I'm concerned, I'm one of those people, because I have certain people in certain communities that I know personally that are in my family, that have surfaced in my friend circle. Mm-hmm. I've learned certain things, and I've learned how to understand certain things. And so my understanding is different than it would be if I had not had this information. And I understand that people are people, humans are humans, and how important it is to treat every single person or human being with respect, whether you agree with what they do or not, which is the reason why I started off the show tonight saying that we're not going to talk negatively about Donald Trump. We can talk about the things that he's done, but I don't want to take personal shots at him because that's just not something that I'm okay with as Marcus J.
Okay.
Having said that, Donald Trump has done some things that I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. And I think he's a crazy person for doing. Mm-hmm. And there are people in certain communities that have done some things that I don't agree with, and I just think is a bit odd. Mm-hmm. And that's how I view certain gender issues. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I got no issue with someone expressing who they are and being who they are. It's got nothing to do with me, mm-hmm. because I ain't got to live with a straight person who might be a crazy person. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to live with a gay person or a transgender person who might be a crazy person. You might get a straight person who's a serial killer. Yeah. Would you rather deal with a straight person that's a serial killer or a transgender person who has a gender ID that you don't agree with?
Right.
A gender ID that you don't agree with that's a citizen who is productive, who loves, who takes care of business, who mm-hmm. goes to work, who does everything that society says that they should do.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's legitimately a crazy person who breaks the law.
Right.
That's where I struggle.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that our ancestors would struggle, mm-hmm. if given all the information and have an opportunity to have a conversation on it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel about it. I think where we get it messed up is we are often tasked with offering our opinion on what we feel about the decision, mm-hmm. as opposed to a person's right to make that decision.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's the thing that trips a lot of people up, and they're unwilling to admit it. Like, the fact that you're so concerned about what this person is doing. You're so concerned about what you deem they should be. We have this really messed up way of what a man should be, or what a woman should be, when all of it's a spectrum. All of it is, and you know, we make fun of people that are born intersex or all these sorts of things. Like, you don't know what it feels like to wake up and feel like you are literally in your wrong body. And no one wants to put themselves in that space because it's so much easier to break down something in a way that makes sense to you, even if that means hurting and potentially putting that other person in harm's way. And it's not a space that a lot of people are willing to get into.
Nah, not at all. Let me get a couple of comments. And our brother Sean is saying peace to you as well as me. Didi said most people don't know about Bayard Rustin. Yeah. And that's true. Let's see. Hakeem says, I hope MLK would be, being that Bayard was his mentor, which mm-hmm. is true. Bayard Rustin was his mentor. Mm-hmm. Didi says, I sometimes wonder if any of the civil rights leaders from back then would have rocked with Harvey Milk and his crusade for LGBTQ rights. That's, you know, most folks don't even know who Harvey Milk was until that movie came out. I think it was Sean Penn that played him in a movie. For those folks who don't know, Harvey Milk was a gay male,
openly
gay male. I believe he was a politician. I think he was a mayor, but he was definitely a politician. Yeah, I think in San Francisco, who was assassinated. Largely because of his homosexual behavior. So, shout out to Harvey Milk. You didn't deserve that, brother. You didn't deserve that. Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Two quick things I want to get to before we shut it down for the night, Q Boogie. Mm-hmm. What do you think they would say about black on black crime? Now, I will add a caveat. I do not like the phrase black on black crime.
Me either.
Because I know that is a phrase that has been coined by the media to make black folks seem more
barbaric,
and predisposed to violence. Yeah. Crime is prevalent where you are, where you live. Right. If you're a Chinese and you live in Chinatown, it's a good bet that you're going to fight and attack other Chinese people. Right. If you're white and you live in a trailer park, it's a good bet that you're going to rob other white people. Mm-hmm. Having said that, we know that the phrase is there, so I want to deal with the phrase because the phrase would be there whether they are here or not.
Yeah.
And since this is about what would they do, what would they say, what would they do or say about black on black crime?
I think it would be the same context. It's like one of those things one of those tools that is trying to be used to other us. Like the same context of where you hear black on black crime, you hear welfare queen, and all these other sorts of things. And it has no basis. It's mainly it's fear-based. It has no basis in truth. It's, well, we believe that this is what's going on, so let's put a name to it so we can control the narrative and cause people to be afraid of this group of people. I know they wouldn't have been along with it. It would have been along the lines of, here's another phrase, there's another wording that they're using to get us killed. And I know they wouldn't have been like, yes, what is it called? I think it's called intra-societal or something like that, where basically what you just explained, if you live in an area that is predominantly made up of the culture and the race that you are, you're not going to walk out of that community and kill someone outside of it. Yes, it happens, but majority of the time when it happens, it's rare. If you're going to kill someone, it most likely is going to be somebody that looks like you.
Yep.
And because there are so many other communities that do the exact same thing, but it's so much easier to demonize us as a people because we are already looked at as being barbaric and dangerous, and like you said, have like a propensity for violence and anger, and automatically you see us walking down the street and you fear for your life. That's what we come across all the time, and they would have been against it. I know they would have.
Dee says there were blacks committing crimes in black neighborhoods back then as well. What did they say then?
I think, what was it? Was it one of those? Was it one of those speeches? I don't know. But like, you can correct me or just tell me because I don't know. Did Martin or Malcolm or any other speakers of that day ever really communicate or talk about that, like in a public setting?
Did they speak of
like us hurting each other?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I would be hypocritical to speak on it specifically without actually knowing. Mm-hmm. My guess is they probably did, because the reality is we backbite, and we've always backbited.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've never been backbiting. So I would guess that that's not something that's uncommon. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they did, mm-hmm. you know, because this is what we do.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is what we do. Ain't no #, Marks J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internetradio. Last piece I want to get to, Q Boogie.
Okay.
What would they say about hip hop? Now, hip hop is 40 years old, or close to 40 years old. And so we can speak on hip hop in its entirety, if it's in its entire existence, or we can speak to certain pieces of it. I'll let you decide how you want to respond to that. What would they say about hip hop?
I think it piggybacks on what we said before about the black on black crime, because the majority of the time in the 90s on, it was particularly violent and misogynistic towards our own people. So I think it piggybacks with it. Like, they would speak about it, they wouldn't like it. Pretty sure they wouldn't like the N-word. Pretty sure about that one. And I think it would be looked at as it would be really tough, because it will be looked at with under the respectability brush, but then also looked at as like, yo, we've come this far and y'all are taking us back. It's cool because this is what it stopped being about the struggle, and this is what you're dealing with after, long time ago. Now you just rap and just rap. Now you're just talking and you're mumbling, you're going to the booth eating a sandwich and we don't understand anything you're saying. And somehow that record goes platinum. We did not intend for this to be the vehicle in which we communicate our deepest thoughts, our deepest fears. Hip hop is had its greatest era. Depending on where you stand and where you land within that, it'll be the late 80s, early 90s, or it'll be like the totality of the 90s, at least until like 98, 99. Or it could be very well around the 2000s, depending on where you are and how old you are.
Right.
I don't know if it's ever going to hit that space of poetry ever again. I think they would appreciate it because like these kids are at least talking about their things, but they wouldn't agree with how we talk about it.
I think that they would have a huge problem with hip hop. Now, when hip hop was born, hip hop was a culture that was designed. It's almost like when you look at reggae, how reggae has patois, and how the patois is a certain language that is spoken amongst those folks who are like-minded, and they understood it, and it was a cultural thing. And hip-hop was like that in its infantry. And I think that they would appreciate that in its infantry. But when you look at the evolution and how it's grown, and you look at the fact that there's a lot of, I don't like this phrase, but I'll use it. There's a lot of selling out with hip hop because you want to get on, you want to get put on, you want to make that money, all of that kind of stuff. So you are going to come together with the enemy and promote images that are no longer positive towards how you would come off. When hip hop first came out, in the late 70s and through the 80s and basically to the very early 90s, you had a level of diversity that you were able to look at and see that it's not all one-dimensional. So you might have Kwame with his polka dots, all fun. You might have Kid and Play with their dance, all fun. You might have Cool G Rap, who is a gangster. You might have Fresh Prince, all fun. You might have Big Daddy Kane and Biz Markie, who were about to party. You might have NWA, who was about the street. You know what I'm saying? It was a certain level of diversity that was there that you don't really see now.
Right.
And I think that they would have an issue with that because it's one-sided now. When you look at how our community is displayed as displayed by our own people, the hip-hop artists, I think that I roll my eyes at it. I'm like, that's all you got? What is that? That's all you got? Like, a lot of the stuff you don't understand. It doesn't make sense, and it's not possible. It's not even possible. Like we talk about mumble rap, and I don't want to throw shade at a person's style. It's your personal style. It's not. I don't want to throw shade at that. I learned this from Reverend Run of Run DMC a few years ago when he talked about how people would look at him and D&J, and they would say that they weren't great. They didn't have, the right to do this music because they was detrimental to the young folks. And I thought it was bullshit when when that was told to him, and he did too, but he respected the elders coming to him and saying that because that's how they felt. Yeah. Even though those of us who was in the culture at the time knew that there was a level of diversity there that may not be there now. So when you transpose that to now, what is the difference when you turn on the radio? Like a lot of times I turn on the radio, which is rare because I can't take terrestrial radio now because I'd much rather listen to legacy internet radio, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's an amazing segue.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Yes, sir. But the folks that are on the radio now, terrestrial radio, like you can't even listen to it. Like at least they had the decency of bleeping stuff then. They don't even bleep shit now.
Yeah, and it's trash because you got folk like Future, when Jay said the thing about you still holding the money to your ear, and Future come around 2 days later like whatever. Like, bro, first off, we know you owe that money to somebody. Secondly, you ain't hear nothing this dude said, but you out here trying to prove a point. He said he's what did he say? He said
who knows
in the future.
Future.
Yeah, basically, he said something about in the future. Something playing football with your son, and you ain't hear none of that. All you heard was still doing money phone in the club. And you come 2 days later with a picture of being like, yeah, I still got the money phone. Bruh, you literally owe money. That was like when 50 was like, I'm going to go file for bankruptcy. In the next few or so months, he had a picture of like $1 million on Instagram. Like, this is what we dealing with.
Yeah.
And the elders, which sucks because, 50 supposedly is supposed to be an elder, technically, if you look at the time frame. Supposed to be an elder in the game, and he basically complained that Jay-Z's album was way too smart. So, in a way, it's like a lot of the kids don't want to listen to the elders because the elders really, in a lot of ways, don't know what they're talking about, or they don't come to them with like
real stuff to come to them with.
Right, and you don't. And if you come into somebody like, don't nobody understand that shit, ain't nobody gonna really want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah.
But if you come to them in a certain way, like Jay did that, and I keep saying Jay because it's a phenomenal album. I'm still team B, but all of that brought us a seat at the table, Lemonade, and 444. So, but it's a phenomenal album that he's dropping jewels throughout the entire album.
So translation, fellas, piss off your sister-in-law, cuss out your lady, so that you can make
cheat on your lady.
Yeah, so you can make a dope record.
And then make a dope record.
Ain't no hashtag with Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. We will take our final break of the night. You got Marcus J. You got Q Boogie. You're listening to the flagship show, Legacy Internet Radio. It's called Ain't No Hashtag with Marcus J. We're going to run this back, by the way, in its entirety. The show has been so dope that once we finish, we got to let you hear it again in case you missed anything. I'm Marcus J. She's Q Boogie. You are you. You are the crew.
Oh, my God.
We will be back.
Oh, man.
When we coming back, Q Boogie?
In a few.
In a few. Last break of the night, y'all. I'm black and I'm proud, y'all. Stay with us. We'll be back in a few.
Man.